Welcome to another episode of the Balcony Podcast. This is a super exciting one for me. It's been a very long time coming. We've done the right thing and waited for all the COVID things to get into a better place and for Bonnie to start chilling out a little bit more. But I'm here with the founder and CEO and president of the Mental Health Society of Greater Victoria. Got Ilia and Pearl here, and I guess a big thing for me has been from the start. I think on the first podcast I mentioned that I was super excited to get people on that are much heavier involved in this side of things than I am. So I'm stoked to have you both here, so welcome. I think it'd be great just to start off with maybe just a bit of an overview of the organization and the work that you guys do, and then we'll dive into a little about you guys individually and share some stories, and then we'll go from there. Let's go.
Sounds good.
Definitely.
Sure. So I founded the Mental Health Society in the end of 2018, and that was mostly due to my own struggles with accessing the mental health system in Victoria and noticing how difficult it was, even for someone like I was a psych student and I had a lot, I thought, of knowledge as I got into my older years about mental health, but it was still very inaccessible, and I have kind of a strange background, so a lot of that has made it difficult to kind of find the right sort of help because I grew up in I was born in Cuba, but I grew up here, but my parents are both immigrants, so some difficulties with like understanding mental health and stuff there. So I started it to try and improve the system somewhat for other people who are in similar situations or just anybody in Victoria.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. And yourself, in terms of initial involvement, I guess, how did you jump on board and become such a pivotal role?
Yeah, well, pretty easy for me to get involved. I remember you had like a Facebook group chat saying, hey everybody, and it was just a handful of your friends, probably people you had met at school and stuff, and through the club as well at UVic, the Mental Health Awareness Club, and you basically said, I'm going to start this nonprofit. Does anybody want to be involved? And then I was just like, yeah. I was already interested in mental health, so really easy in for me. And then, so then I was just ready to get involved however I could. And then pretty soon after that, we learned a lesson that I think we're still learning, which is that volunteers are hard to keep. And so we like, joined forces, and like I joined her organization, and then the group of whatever it was initially, not two, and then like maybe four around the time that I joined. We like lost those other two people and a few other volunteers, and then and eventually it was just like you and I with the longest running members, so
just made sense.
The leadership role just kind of felt natural.
It's very organic. And one thing I'll point out as well is I guess the organic nature of how you both have ended up here as well, before we dive into a little bit about the specifics of the work that you do in your own stories, and tell a brief story about how you and I met, and I guess the synergy related to that, and how I think everything's all really organic. And pre-lockdown version, whatever it was, last year, there was a little gathering of our mutual friends. I met yourself and your partner, Safi. Shout out to you, mate. And it was a very fun evening for sure. And within, I don't know, hours of knowing each other, we were having very deep, intense conversations, all three of us, just about what was going on in our lives. But it was just so easy and profound. I remember the next day getting a message from Safi, and it was just so like fulfilling for me and wholesome. And I don't remember how much long later, but in the exact same spot at the same market where I met the Justos boys, you just walked up towards me out of nowhere, and you were running the stand that you run for this at the market. Started telling me a little bit about it, and I was just like, yep, love it. I still have the sticker in my room and in the card from that day. But just I think for me, accessibility has been a real big thing that I've learned super difficult everywhere. Some really close friends of mine through the work that I've done here as well have found it really, really hard to get good help. And it's really discouraging. You're already in a place that's really difficult, I've found, that almost makes it really hard and apprehensive to seek help in the first place. And then the first touch point with the system is difficult or horrible sometimes, and it just turns people away. I know you've probably had much more experience in this sense than I have, and you just talked about why it all started, but I'd love to hear more of the, I guess, stories that you've heard from that, and how you're trying to break that down and make it more accessible to people. It'd be great.
Sure, yeah. I've personally been, for example, part of the hospital system and stuff, and had to stay in the emergency care, so I know quite a bit about the Mental Health Act, and I know that it's supposed to ultimately be helpful, but I know that there's a lot of issues with it, especially with there's just not enough people who are working in psych care for them to not feel burnt out, and I think it's just where the wrong people or maybe the right people, and they're just tired or they're not feeling supported themselves, and so they aren't really treating patients always the kindest, or you might not get a very empathetic welcome from somebody when you're first seeking help, which is a huge time where you need somebody to be at the very least supportive of you seeking help, but that can be hard to find because they sometimes see hundreds of people a day, or they have compassion fatigue, and they can't really empathize with you because they're kind of tired themselves. So it's tough.
I talk about I think on some previous podcasts about, you got to fill your own bucket up first before you can really help others. And it sounds like the majority of people in this side of the healthcare system are drained, and then that's the first contact that people are getting, and it's tough.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's kind of the main problem, is that there is a lot of different kinds of counselors and stuff out there, but it's really, really specific, I think, for every one person for what they need. So a counselor that maybe is really helpful with mindfulness might be the opposite of what somebody else wants or needs, but there are people that don't know that there are different counselor options out there. So kind of the MHS is supposed to act as kind of a peer support to help the navigating process, and then also be checking in on them. So kind of the same as like a buddy would check in on you, but I guess more scheduled appointments where it's just about following up if you've been going to your counseling, if you've been taking your medication, that sort of stuff that I feel like I would have benefited from, and possibly might still need to use. So something that definitely I want to set up for other people to have. Yeah.
I mean, even just that resonates with me. It sounds like you're trying to solve a problem that you've gone through yourself, which is, it's beautiful. So good on you for that. That's all I'm saying. Can you talk a little bit more maybe about how you're connecting those dots a little bit through the system to be able to provide that platform for people, not just the accountability side of things afterwards, but especially that initial side of things as well?
Yeah. So we have compiled a database of mental health services, and we use that term pretty broadly because we try to have like a really holistic, well-rounded perspective of what can be a mental health service. And so we have this database, which is basically a huge list of different service options, service providers in Victoria, and we're still growing that database and updating it. Especially during COVID, a lot of things have either been shut down or changing their hours or going entirely online. So we have a team of people just completely devoted to that database, and then other teams for other purposes, which we can get into later. But yes, we have that database, and we have support phone calls where basically we schedule a time to talk with somebody and hear their story, where they're at. They can ask us questions about next steps. We can talk about service provider options, whatever options that might be available to the person. And then, as Ilia said, subsequent phone calls are made to follow up and check in on that person. So that's one kind of arm of our service navigation service. And the other thing that we're doing for service navigation is developing a mobile app. So we have a mobile app developer named, should we say his name?
I guess so.
Riley Pearl.
Good job, Riley. You're doing great work.
Shout out to Riley.
Yeah.
And so he's developing this basically interface that connects the user to our database.
Nice.
So the app asks a few basic questions about like how old are you, very basic questions about what you're looking for, and then gives a basically uniquely tailored list of mental health services that has like one-touch phone calls and can connect to Google Maps to help you physically navigate to get to the place. So that's kind of what we're doing. That mobile app has not been released yet. We're just kind of finishing up. Hopefully soon.
Come on, Riley, let's go.
And yeah, so that's like really exciting kind of next step.
Yeah.
For us.
Awesome.
Just to tag onto that, for the services that we do kind of try to link people to, we try to make sure that they're currently available, because like there's obviously long wait lists. So if we do recommend a resource that has a wait list, we like to know that beforehand so we can give them a heads up that if you choose this one, there will be a wait time, or these ones may not be exactly what you're looking for, but they're here for you right now, just to give them something. Because otherwise, if say the only thing that fits them is a wait list option, then that way they have some backups.
Yeah,
totally.
For sure. I think in itself, though, I mean, that's such a difficult network to build, as you know, the mental health space in its entirety is evolving so much at a rapid pace in general, and then you throw COVID on top of that, and I mean, so much must have been changing. It would have been chaos for you guys. I can imagine trying to just align that logistically, but also, you know, hopefully, my hope, I've discussed this a lot, is that the difficulties through this COVID period hopefully have shown a lot on how important some of this stuff is, even more so now. And you know, I'm not across the act and the legislative side of things, but just feeling socially there's more weight being put behind that too. So hopefully that can really help bolster what amazing work you guys are already doing. And Riley, just a bit quicker, Riley. I'm kidding, love you, Riley. So that's great. That's great that we set the scene with MHS. And I think towards the end, I want to talk about specifically how people can get involved and help and whatnot. But I'd like to pivot a little bit first to you guys as individuals, you girls as individuals, sorry. I'll share a little bit about my own experience first before just throwing you guys in the deep end. But I've seen 3 therapists in my time. 2 since being here after a big fiasco last year that's been unpacked on other episodes. But even in that experience is what led me to really resonate with you know, the app idea and the accessibility. Is the first person that I saw, great therapist, just completely not what I needed. Very much sort of a in your head style therapist is what I would describe that one as, whereas the second one was such a holistic therapist that led me to meditation, all these other things that just completely shifted my world and have led to all the things that I'm doing right now. And like, she wrote my wall for my birthday, and I was like, oh my god, like I owe you so much. I'm like so grateful for you. But the point of the story was that like that it was so hard. I actually went backwards after my first few sessions, that first person, and it was like really, really difficult. And then I've already mentioned my stories with people that I've worked with here having the same difficulty. And I guess I wanted to bring that up just to sort of say that I've been in the system and I've experienced it, and obviously all the other reasons why I do this type of stuff have been unpacked on here in a vulnerable sense. But I'd love to hear your personal experiences in a little bit more detail. You kind of touched on a little bit at the start, but you know, why is this so important to you? What's driving you to do this, I guess?
Before we get into that, I just want to say that like I'm really happy to hear that you started with a therapist that didn't work and then sought out another therapist, and just feel like the need to say how important that is and how valuable that is, and also how brave that was of you, because so many people just like completely give up after they seek help. Like they finally basically like get, you know, the courage to seek help and to involve somebody else in their like personal mental health struggles, and then if it doesn't work, then I think sometimes that like completely sets off somebody's entire mental health trajectory, and just like throw in the towel and think, oh, I'm just gonna like suffer 100%. In silence next time, or I'm just like not gonna ask for help. So well done.
No, thank you for that. And I'll shout out my close buddy Logan on his episode. He talked about his exact same experience, and I think I said the same sentiment as well. Like, you know, bravo for going in again. It's tough enough the first time, you know. But no, that's sweet. I
And
appreciate
for
that.
anybody who's listening and like or watching or whatever, and like I just think it's so important for people to know, just you got to keep trying.
Yeah.
If the shoe
100%.
doesn't fit, then there's gonna be other shoes.
Yeah, sure. No, it's a very, very important point to highlight, so I appreciate that.
Anyway.
Yeah. Well, thank you. No. Hey, pump me up.
Oh, my
Yeah, you're
personal
next.
story.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
We were pointing, remember?
right. Right. So I guess mine is a little bit complicated. I never know where to start with it, but I definitely knew that something was up when I was quite young. I think I just struggled through all of my adolescence and stuff. And again, my parents being immigrants, like mental health, I never even heard that term. I didn't hear anything about depression, even the basic things that people I feel like know about in Western culture isn't or wasn't really something we talked about. So when I first started having mental health issues, which is specifically panic attacks, were what kind of raised the alarm. They panicked themselves, and then it was just like everyone panicking, and it was just imagine how to just over and over again, and then just going to the ER, just getting like a quick dose of something to tranquilize me, and then off I went, and then seeing a counselor as well, who really I did not think helped, but my dad was forcing me into it because I think I was 16, so also being forced into something.
Yeah.
Encouragement is different. I think encouragement is great. I think everyone should be seeing a counselor, but obviously if you're completely against it, it's not going to work because it's...
Well, your whole lens is
exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
So it wasn't working for me. And then things kind of went up and down for the next couple of years. And then I got diagnosed with ADHD after my first year of university. And I noticed that that was something that I never knew, but I struggled in school with just paying attention, but I never really had to because I was just the star student that just did all the work quickly and then just was off distracted somewhere else. But so that was a really shocking, I guess, discovery, and one that I'm still, I guess, one of the diagnoses I'm less comfortable with, just because I feel like there's so many new things I keep finding out that, it turns out every time you do this and you're actually cutting somebody off in a sentence, that's like an ADHD trait. And I was like, I thought it was just like horribly rude. But you could be both, but but anyways, and then after that diagnosis I got, and after my hospitalization, that was a really traumatic experience for me at the Jubilee. And I know there's like groups on Facebook and stuff about that. So we have some partnership with the girls who, I can't remember what it's called.
PES, pathetic excuse.
I'm not sure, but there's some dialogue about it now, which is going on, which I think is great because it seems like a lot of people have had similar experiences, and it's the kind of experience that is also shameful, and where at the end of the experience, like the things that were told to me were, well, why would people believe you when you've been in here? Like, like my validity is obviously not really there because I'm mentally ill, so therefore like what I say isn't really can be counted on. So
glad those groups exist.
And then after that I got diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. So that was one of the biggest things that kind of forced me to do something about it, only because it was just so difficult to go even speak to a doctor because of that being on my file. And there is, and I'm not sure about if I have like any other things. I'm still trying to get my medical records to see what it says, but I know it's not super great, but which is unfortunate because if I went in for a headache and it wasn't at all treated as a headache because of my other things going on. So it definitely takes away a lot of validity, and manipulative is kind of the key word that is used with borderline. And I hear it all the time when I work with youth who also have borderline or borderline traits, is that they're manipulative, or there's always like warning sheets about interacting with borderline
Yeah.
patients as a completely different subset than any other patient. It's borderline patients are kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I've read up on it previously before, so I understand. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little.
Yeah. So is this, from a timeline perspective, these discoveries, diagnoses, all these experiences, these are leading up to foundation, or have you started to put things in motion to when we really start changing this system at this stage?
Right. I co-founded a mental health awareness club while I was at UVic doing my undergrad. I don't remember what year that was, 2015 maybe. That was more of a low-key one, and it was more about raising, again, awareness, which I feel like really wasn't around that much several years ago.
No, yeah, for sure.
Now I feel like that, yeah, like there's enough awareness now. So I was
You did a great job. You're killing it. Yeah. Yeah.
So after I graduated, I still had mental health challenges. Of course, I took kind of a year without doing anything just because I was trying to find work, but then I felt like something was just missing where I didn't feel fulfilled. Just because I felt like I needed to do something about, especially since I was still needing to go to walk-ins, and I didn't have a family doctor, so I could see how difficult it was for me. And once I was open about it and starting the club, I've had, I want to say, dozens of friends who have contacted me, and like, which is very heartwarming, but also really upsetting to see that there's so many people that I would never ever have assumed. Not that you should assume, but I mean, I thought I had a pretty good radar for that kind of thing, but it really was always, it's a bunch of people that I would never have expected, and a lot of having to be kind of like emergency support for in a lot of scary situations with a lot of people that I may be close with and sometimes not even super close with, but I feel they felt as though they didn't know where else to go. So
yep, for sure. Having done this and even previously in Australia on a lower scale, that was something that was shocking to me as well. Is that when you're, I guess, publicly known to accept these type of conversations, I mean, it's great that people start talking about it. It's the whole point of it, but it's also, it's shocking to see the frequency of it. But if anything, gives so much more weight to what you're doing. And I think probably the biggest consistent dialogue I've had on these is just that talking about it is the most important thing. Just to one person, even as a start, just opening it up and having the pathways to do so is huge. So you experience that immediately, which is really tough sometimes. We talked about that energy scale, and you probably get sapped straight away, but so important. And thank God you're getting some support, and we can have conversations like this and promote it a little bit more.
Yeah.
The question I had before we jump over to you is, was there any stage before you really started to get some movement in what you're doing now, where you really started to, help yourself and find some avenues, maybe it was externally, that started to move your health needle a little bit more, or has it been a constant battle until some of this stuff has shifted through the work that you've done? I'm really interested to hear your...
It's a really good question. I think it's mostly I feel like it's definitely not a linear kind of progression by any means. I think I don't know if I would say consistently up and down. I feel like I've at least gotten better with my coping mechanisms and having healthier ones and healthier outlets, like people around me that are like super supportive, and where if I was doing a bunch of these things by myself, it wouldn't really be feasible. But I think the main thing was after that BPD diagnosis, and after that was just trying to find the right medications and the right dosages, which I'm not even positive that they're correct right now, but that obviously it took a long time. And then once those were regular, and I just felt more confident in myself and being able to handle, I guess, the hurdles in the mental health system myself, because I didn't feel like I could reasonably expect anyone else to do it if I hadn't done it myself. So kind of that helped push me to do it and to get more help. Also, just so I had a better idea, so I could tell other people, what services were good.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you answering that question so well. I say a lot of time, whether it's on here to my friends, there's no there. People say, oh, it's okay, I'll get there. And I say straight away, there's no there. There doesn't exist. That's why I love that you said it's not linear, because realizing that there's, life's about the journey kind of philosophy, but I mean it in that sense, is that you take that pressure off yourself straight away. There's no 100% level of, oh, I got there, tick, that doesn't exist. And recognizing that all these things that you've learned and those experiences you just talked about are just giving you tools in your tool belt to deal with the inevitable hurdles, I think you used that word, that will come, and that's the key thing. So,
and I feel like that's kind of the thing, as I really did expect kind of the feelings and stuff to go away, but I feel like they're still there, all those kind of, but it's just handled better in a way that it doesn't, I guess, spiral out of control, because again, like, it might be that I was having a really bad day, but then in the past I might react, like I might be easy to set off because I'm like that day, but then that causes a fight, which then of course makes my mental health a lot worse, because now there's this interpersonal conflict, and then all of these things that just snowball really, really quickly out of control.
Spiral has resonance with me, because that was the word that I used when I was learning about my childhood trauma and what would happen to me in an adult sense from all that type of stuff. And spiraling is what I described it. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's awesome. No, good for you. That's crazy. That's awesome. No, I just love sharing people's stories. It's I bet it's so many people, how many watch, will get so much out of that, because it's just a story of resilience, and you're just learning about yourself, and that's the most important thing. And the more knowledge you have over yourself, your triggers, spiraling, all that type of stuff, it's just can't know yourself enough, I think.
And really, like, the MHS didn't even start like expanding super quickly until like with COVID, and I think that honestly had a lot to do with just me having more time to focus on it, where I had so much time off that I felt I had to, I didn't want to force myself into feeling productive, but I decided that just working on this was my idea of productive, and it helped a lot in the sense of getting people together and just having Zoom calls where otherwise we weren't meeting anybody. So I think it was good just as a community kind of network as well.
Needed more than ever in that still now, and hopefully it's more prevalent moving forward. So. Your turn.
Cool.
Story time.
So I feel like my whole life I've been close to people who really struggle with like different mental health challenges, and most of those people I think have spent their mental health journey suffering in either silence or like in some form of private, which is so like sad to watch. And then also like individually, I had a lot of pretty severe physical health issues when I was little, like birth till age like 10. I was in the hospital a lot, and had surgery and all those things, and that really got me passionate about like health, what I saw at that time as like physical health. But then as I've gotten older, I have like informed myself more about like the connection between mental health, physical health, and what just overall health means, and what's the point of surviving if you're not feeling well in some kind of way. And so I just think you can't really, like, I choose not to decipher so strictly between the physical health and the mental health. And so since I was already like sure that I was passionate about physical health, then that just really kind of organically like oozed into a passion towards mental health, I think. And then I just kind of took it from there.
Nice. No, that's such an important thing to highlight when people talk about health. Like, are you healthy? So much people just probably think about weight, heart, all that type of stuff from a physical sense, but well-being is so more holistic than that. And changing the narrative around what it really means to be healthy and putting all those other gauges on it, I think, is an important way to start having those conversations, for sure.
Definitely. And I feel like I've always known how powerful conversations can be, and I think that mental health is one of those kind of like concepts and realms and fields where conversation is even more powerful. And yeah.
I don't think it's a coincidence that you and I fell into that discussion the first time that we ever met. I think it says a lot. Well, I appreciate you both sharing those things. It's huge. I guess we had to put the pillar cores of the balcony vulnerabilities probably number one on that list. Community is probably number two, and you've both spoken to those two things so well.
Perfect.
Yeah, I didn't even give you a hint beforehand. No, honestly, thank you so much for sharing. I want to bring it back to MHS now. Instagram page. I put all the details and stuff in, everything to follow and whatnot. And I would like to know, well, I know a bit, but I'd like you to share a little bit more about how people can be involved, can help, whether it's directly through what you're doing or just in general in a broader scheme in the life sense. I mean, we're talking a lot about it now, but I think that'd be really important to share.
Sure, yeah. We accept any volunteers, and as Pearl said, we were always looking because we're 100% volunteer run. So yeah, one of the main ways that people support us is by volunteering. Right now we have a team of just over 25-ish, I want to say. And it's very, very varied. So a lot of people on the team do have personal connection, personal experience. It's not required. For our peer caller system, where you're connected to a peer, of course that would be someone with experience going through the system, but otherwise we have people from all backgrounds who are passionate for whatever reason, and we welcome from any, like we said, we have app developers, we have people who nurses, occupational therapists, just all kinds of people, and
a lot of students.
A lot of students. We welcome students. Basically, anybody who is willing to do a little bit of work. We don't ask for a lot. And then.
And we can really work with people's skill sets. We have different teams within our team. We have the resource team, which I mentioned before. They manage the database. We have the app development team. We have a workshops and education team, so they develop online seminars and workshops about different mental health topics.
And we have we even have a creative media team now, which is just still growing. But that's kind of I'm a very artistic person, and I feel like that's how I've always used as my healthy outlet. So just trying and seeing that there's a lot more creative people, and there's obviously is a connection between mental illness and I think some increased outlet of creativity. Not that but I think that's also just really cool to see something made by just to have a series of different art pieces made by people in the community who have mental health challenges, and those being sold by donation, and then those proceeds going to help fund our programs, basically, since nobody's paid, so it just goes directly to, and since we're super small, it literally goes directly there.
No, that's a great initiative for sure.
And we have a pretty vibrant social media team as well. Especially during COVID, we've really relied on social media to connect with the community and to spread our initiatives. When kind of quarantine and the whole lockdown thing first happened, we started an interview initiative where we have online interviews with different mental health professionals to kind of raise awareness about what they're doing and how people can access their services during the pandemic. So that's been a really cool initiative done by the social media team, and they're always doing other things as well. So that's another key part of our organization, especially right now since we're operating remotely.
So some of our videos would be kind of where you can kind of meet some counselors and see if anyone sparks your interest just by the way that they're talking or by listening to the interview. They kind of describe what they kind of therapies and stuff that they use in their practice, and there's also just some lived experience ones or just other professionals in Victoria and the connection of how they live with their mental illness doing that job, which is often, of course, there is a lot of people in healthcare and stuff. I think it's just kind of people are drawn to helping out, but I think it's still really fascinating to learn about for example, hospitality and all of those industries that are really not associated with mental health.
Yeah.
But recently it's all coming up as an issue for basically every industry. So something that we're going to hopefully be doing once the pandemic like eases up even more is some in workplace workshops, because which we do offer already. It's just been a little slowed down,
sure.
but
yeah,
just especially in areas like for example, we did Vancouver Island Brewing, but we hope to do some more.
I know.
Oh
yeah, I was there. Yeah, but I was working, so it was like I was present, but I wasn't.
Oh, okay.
I was there.
I was supposed.
No, don't worry about
Okay.
it. It's okay. I won't tell anyone. I love the eyes you're like. Well, actually, segue into my next question was going to be post. Well, I mean, we're getting there, but everyone's double vaxxed. We're back. We're Australia again. What's next for you guys? That's one thing. But beyond that, where do you see this going next? App, obviously, one big thing coming in the pipeline, but that's part one of the question is, with the immediate shift out of COVID, what has that changed outside of these work seminars and stuff? And just on that as well, in the industries, I think normalizing it everywhere is really important. So that's huge. And then second question, to go a little bit bolder than that, is like, longer future period of time. Where can you see this going? What's really important to you? What do you really want to try and make a difference in? And how do you think you're going to do that? Two-parter, immediate, future, go.
I feel like future is easier.
Yeah.
Almost long-term future.
Yeah, could I do that? And then you talk about the record, and our merch and all that.
Yeah, good way. That's good. We'll do future.
Circus.
We're just going to have a meeting here, guys.
Okay, I'll do that too. So for long term, I guess we only have about, I think, a 2-year plan currently, but what I envision long term would just be similar to what we have now, but with a physical space. Ideally something that's a little bit bigger than just like a small office, but take what we can get. But where we offer that navigation service I mentioned that's over the phone, also offering it drop-in, just to have that face-to-face interaction, and also possibly having appointments there. Just in general, having it where we have an interconnected kind of program, where right now we have about like 4 or 5 clients, but and I'm sure that'll expand very quickly, where we can just kind of help people keep tabs on their mental health in Victoria. We already have quite a few partnerships with other mental health service organizations, and we're part of a navigation group with a psychosocial rehabilitation committee. So a lot of stuff there worth working on. They all have a database, so the health database of BC. Basically, we're trying to help them revamp it because of they want it to be accessible to the public, but the way that it isn't very user friendly. So we're kind of trying to combine our database with theirs. Plus, they have the funding, so hopefully that might work a little bit so that because like I said, it's really important that everything is up to date, where we have kind of everything consistently updated on the app, easy to navigate. Ideally open hours, where it even tells you the service, like you can call currently, or you not right now. And our app is definitely going to expand, where we have safety plans, for example, which is where you can put kind of details about what helps you in a crisis or helps a friend in a crisis, and you can save that. So that could be, and there's going to be more youth oriented ones as well, because I work at a school, and I've been trying to. And it's cool because I gave them a presentation on the app, and nobody asked what mental health was. But like a couple years ago, I did a presentation similar to a couple grade 6s, and no one knew what I was talking about.
Yeah, that's huge.
They knew like what the word suicide meant, but other than that, and like even that was like a funny word to them. Like they don't really know what it means. Yeah. But every kid knew what it was. They all promised they would download it, and it's a really big thing now. Like whenever kids are noticing their friends are upset and wanting to support them, they don't really know how to, other than like patting them on the back. But especially kids are learning a lot more about neurodivergence and there's a lot more kids with like, you know, different
Yeah.
sensory needs. They might want more space when they're upset, but that doesn't mean they don't want support. So things like that. So maybe when I'm really upset, I will use this code word, and that maybe means whatever for that person. Or if I'm really in distress, I really would prefer you call my mom or something rather than my dad, or I would prefer you tell this teacher because they've always been, or just a person of contact, just so that they have some autonomy also on when you're feeling really helpless, to have a little bit of something to help you where you can at least choose, you know, what to do about it.
Yeah, for sure. Nice.
So that would be on the safety plan.
I'd be on the safety plan on the app for, and that's right. And that's, and the app again, like, will be more, I'm hoping, because it also will be easy to transfer that app to different cities. As long as the database is formatted the same way for different cities, it's easy to.
It's huge.
Yeah, so that would be awesome. I would love it for like my map to be like my map Victoria, my map, et cetera, et cetera.
That's what it's called. Mind map.
Yeah,
I don't think
sorry.
we've used that term before.
It's called Mind Map.
We're bringing it home strong.
Mine.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be kind of the idea, and I would love it for this to even, very long term would be this in a bunch of major cities.
Yep.
Not even necessarily major cities, because I think that might be tough, but just in a lot of places where they think that they might need it, and that just being a volunteer-based organization. And I think that a lot of people do really confide in us because they know that we aren't getting paid to listen to them. And I think that's not that there's anything wrong with, you know, with paid counseling and stuff, but sometimes, especially if you feel like you don't have a friend in your life that you could talk to, you don't want to pay someone for that initial consult. And that's usually the first step, is someone will say, oh, I did go to talk to my doctor, but I didn't know what to say, and I actually ended up leaving without getting what I wanted.
Right.
Like, what do I do? Does that ever happen to you? And what can I say next time? Or it could even be someone who's never even learned the words mental health, and they just feel like they're in crisis, and even just giving them some vocabulary that they can use when they go and see a doctor, because doctors do assume that you have done your own research, but a lot of people think that they shouldn't do their own research because it looks like they might be making stuff up, even though it's funny, because no other physical thing people are like, oh, I'm making it up, they're not going to believe me. Like, oh, no, it's not broken at all, I swear. Like, no, nothing else do you do that for, but it's just funny that.
No, so true.
And
I think going back to, you talked about the awareness created when you first started getting into this stuff, and then people started to talk to you. I talked about that as well. But that's something we're trying to normalize. It sort of breaks down some initial barriers to that formal health setting, and may even prevent it, right? Like, just talking to people that you trust about this stuff is huge. Normalizing that, and maybe that first time you have that chat with your friend, you still go to a therapist and work through some stuff, but like we've talked about, you start developing these coping mechanisms and you learn more 100%. About yourself. The next time something happens, maybe that chat you have with your friend is all you need.
Well, exactly, and you don't feel like you need to hide your appointment in general, so then that takes off the anxiety of maybe having to take off work. You're no longer stressed about that. All these things that, like the snowball thing, and you just spiral, and it could just be the spiral could just be because you're getting help. It could be all these good things that you're doing, but that are obviously anxiety like invoking, because they're scary to do and they're scary to talk about. And I think that you mentioned formal, and I feel like that was one of my main things, is not that I have anything against formality, but it took years of very, very, very formal visits with professionals where they really didn't tell me anything like down to earth, even though I was pretty young as well, so I could have used it even more, I think, than I would have now. But just it took years, and then eventually like a psych nurse, I think it was, who was or a mental health nurse, who she just told me, she's like, oh, that sucks. Feeling like shit must suck. And I was like, oh my god, like, you have no idea. Like, and you know that they think that, because they obviously are like, it's not like that's news to me, but I think it's just that hint of professional, but it's about knowing, I guess, who you're talking to.
Mm-hmm.
And some people really just need just a conversation, and those people who know that and reach out to us, like, I love that we can provide that for them, especially like in conjunction to other help. But like you said, sometimes it's just they want to ask a question about somebody else, and they just have the question is, I want to support my friend who's in crisis but is bringing it up bad. Like, just questions as simple as that.
That's another huge thing that I think is, because what I think is happening, what we're talking about, and everything you're going to do, it's not an if, you're going to do all this stuff. I know it. You're almost creating a positive spiral the opposite way. And you empower the individuals that are going through things, and then you're empowering the network of people around them as well, because that, I don't want to call it fear, but even that anxiety around how do I help?
Yeah.
That's a huge thing as well. Like, I'm not suffering with anything, but I genuinely care. How do I help? That's also just as important, I think. And providing, the safety plans, all those other type of things, and everything else that you're going to tick off when you expand, and giving people that aren't suffering but care and want to be involved opportunities to learn and understand how that works and how they can help is just as vital as providing the platform. And I think what I loved listening to you talk about with the future is that you're acknowledge, like, the accessibility is a problem. You're solving the problem there, but you're also acknowledging that there's still some serious value in being in person, that human connectivity element, that energy flow. Oh, we got this far without a hummus going off. It's my group chat for the business. It Slack says hummus. It says the word hummus. Anyway, Justin. No, I think it's I know, and that's why I wanted to wait to do this in person as well. I think there's so much in this space that can be amplified by being each other's presence, for sure. But, like you've said, there's so many roadblocks just getting access, and this app is amazing. I think transferring it to other places is going to be huge, and I'm excited for all those things. It's amazing. Honestly, like, the work that you're both doing, that your volunteers are doing, that Riley's doing, no, it's so honorable and it's amazing. And I get hard on myself. I've only done 2 of these this year, and it's something that I know, like, gives me such energy and makes me feel so much better about life. But you're doing it every single day, and it's just say yes.
Well, we try.
Well, you're living it, and it's just I just wanted to just acknowledge that it's amazing, and I feel blessed to be able to, like, share this stuff with some other people as well. So kudos to you both.
Well, thank you.
No.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
That's huge. Is there anything else that either of you guys wanted to? I keep saying guys. People.
That's fine. I say that
I say
too.
it all the time. I'm trying not to.
I was going to say also, just as a future goal, I think we really want to solidify and, like, deepen our partnerships in the city.
Yeah.
Because I think we'll be able to, like, better serve Victoria if not only, like, we're referring people to service providers, but they're also referring
people to us. Yeah.
Like, if a therapist can say, like, I have a wait list, or I'm not taking new patients right now, but, like, you can go to the mental health society
and they'll find you somebody.
And they'll find you something, like, that would be huge.
And that's something we also do, is we're able to book appointments and stuff for people as long as they consent to that. But we're open to helping them find actual appointments and, like, helping them look, even if it's just for their area specifically and everything. So that'd be great if we could have a more a more rapid referral system where we could just directly kind of transfer them over.
Yep.
And then the dream would be to be in, like, a big office where there would be multiple different mental health professionals in the building, and then it'd be like, you're right upstairs.
Manifest that,
I am.
Good. I'm gonna do it too.
Okay.
Well, speaking of hummus going off, Justin and I talk about this analogy for our business a lot, about the dominoes, and that once they start falling, they're just gonna keep falling, and you just gotta really push super hard on that first one. But what we've also thought is, as well, in a double analogy, is that if you just keep pushing hard enough, sometimes you won't notice that they're already falling down, and you just keep doing that work, and the good things will happen. And there's a lot about who you know these days, but I always say it's who you are that really matters. And as long as you keep living this stuff and you're authentic, and that shines through, that will happen. You will do that for sure. You will. It's on record. It's gonna happen.
It's recording.
Well, yeah, thank you so much for joining me
Yeah.
on this. I've been so excited to have you both on.
Thanks.
Thank you for sharing your stories. I know there's going to be so much resonance from people that are watching and get so much value out of it. I know I have personally, so absolutely honored. We'll throw links and everything in there to get everyone connected to the page and everything beyond.
Sounds good. And our personal, should we put our personal
Yeah.
emails are just our names at mhsvictoria.org. So if there's anything, anyone feels like they have a personal question for one of us, then
For sure.
we're very, very open.
Yeah, and that's Pearl and Ilia.
ILIA.
Yeah, we'll throw them in there.
We'll put them in there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tyler.